Hey everybody, Rob Ferretti here, and today I'm going to give you a very good piece of advice. It's how not to get shot by a cop. Good advice, right? So ultimately, there are bad encounters you have with police. Not every cop is good. Every encounter may not be justified, but ultimately, think about it this way. Cops are human. They're normal people like you and I. They have a job. Their job is to enforce the laws that were levied upon us. Now, not all people are good. So ultimately, you can't expect all cops to be good if not all people are good. So if you take that logic to it, the majority of people are good and the majority of cops are good. So don't expect that you're always going to have a negative encounter. But if you do, here is how you can sort of navigate through it without getting your ass kicked, without getting more felony charges or anything that you don't necessarily want, and most importantly, without getting dead. Very important, right? You don't want to be on the news as somebody's t-shirt. Unless its t-shirt is Rob Spaghetti, which you can click on the link in the description and pick up your Rob Spaghetti t-shirt. So first thing you want to do, and cops are even taught this, remember when you get pulled over, your adrenaline's high, the cop's adrenaline may be high. Don't escalate the situation. Don't be an asshole for no reason. Like, just go out and make it through the process as quickly as possible. The one word that I'm going to use that's very important is comply. If the officer asks you to do something, you do it. Why? Because if you do it, then you won't get injured, killed, possibly even arrested for no reason. Just listen to what they're saying, because ultimately there's a way to right those wrongs if the cop is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, or if he is wrong, or if your rights are being violated. You can get repaid for that, essentially. You could be made whole in the grand scheme of things, but you have to go through it. Resisting, fighting, doing anything like that, not good. And even cops are taught to de-escalate a situation. Escalating it to another level and people are getting amped up, especially when one guy has a gun, maybe the second guy has a gun. That's legal in a lot of states for both civilians and police to have guns. It's unnecessary. It's stupid. You don't want to do it. So always make sure you're not escalating the situation. Cops are taught that. Individuals are now being taught that. But don't escalate. Now, if you feel like the cop is wrong or what you're doing is not being treated fairly, whatever, request a superior officer. You can ask, it's within your rights to say, can you please send out a superior officer? They will do that. If for some reason they don't do that and you don't feel like they're an actual police officer, then you dial 911, get the actual police on the phone. If he's not an actual cop, I've heard stories, it's probably not gonna ever happen to you. But if for some reason the cop is not calling a superior officer to the scene, you have the right to call 911, and at least they'll send a real cop if that guy's not a real cop, or they'll at least address the situation and say, you are pulled over, we don't have anyone available to come out right now. That ends that avenue of righting what you feel is a wrong. Next step is to, if you're now pulled over, you comply. You get your ticket. You may be in the cop car. You may do this. You have no idea what's going to happen. You may get arrested. Take the arrest and fight it later. Now, if you feel like you weren't treated fairly, you can go to internal affairs. Internal affairs will then investigate the police officer and make sure that the police officer acted within the confines of his job and his duties. If he did not, disciplinary action, maybe he would even be fired. Who knows what may end up happening there. The other option is to then go to court, and you go to court after you can go to court and file the IA complaint as well, internal affairs. You go to court and you fight the ticket. Now, if say you're in who gives a shit podunk town, cop is also brothers with the judge, who's brothers with the internal affairs, and you're just screwed. You're like, the world is treating me poorly. You can escalate it to an appellate court, and then you can go to even higher court, state Supreme Court, and then even the Supreme Court if your rights have really been violated. But what you don't want to do is escalate the situation. You can deal with you've seen me, I've had encounters. You can deal with these difficult police officers by being civil and listening to what they're asking you to do, and by doing it. You're not being a hard ass by knowing your rights better than him. If you know your rights better than him, fight it in court. It's probably one of a lawyer's favorite things to do is to sue a police department, because you'll get a huge payday and you'll be the happiest guy for one miserable encounter for an hour of your life and maybe a night in jail. You'll ride the golden parachute for the rest of your life because you were able to sue the department because you're your rights were violated, whatever. Just do what the hell they say, because the goal here is to not get injured, not get killed, not create a more dangerous situation than it has to be. Cops, for the most part, are good. They do not want to bust your balls. They don't want to give you a hard time. They're not looking to create an encounter where they don't need one, because they're getting paid no matter what. They're not like, I'm bored, let's just go pick up that guy and kick him in the face and shoot him. That's not how the world works. So comply. If they ask you to stop, stop. If they ask you to get out of the car, get out of the car. If you run, if you fight, if you do anything like that, there is a good chance that the results, as can be expected, may be injury or death, and you do not want that. So those are your steps on how to deal with a difficult police officer. I've got some experience in that department, and I'd say 1 out of every 50 pullovers, I may have had that. So maybe 4 or 5 in my life have I had a difficult police officer. And a lot of the times, there were remedies that I could have taken, and I could have pursued it further. I did not, because a lot of it was out of state, and it was over, and it was $90 versus now flying back to be in court to face this and face that, and it just wasn't worth the headache. It was done and buried. So there's your advice. Sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and I'm not really that much of a principal guy that I want to go sue the department for some sort of nonsense. Ultimately, the goal of this video is to teach you how to interact, what you have the rights to do, what you have the rights not to do. You have the rights to be a dick, but being a dick is not going to solve the problem. It's going to make the situation potentially more dangerous and usually not work out in your favor and create a shit ton of work and cost you a shit ton of money to fight to prove that you were right or wrong. Because remember, police have representation. They've got lawyers. If they do something really wrong, they may have to hire the lawyer themselves, but they have unions that hire the lawyers. The prosecutor is on the police's side. So just listen. If you get a ticket you don't deserve, if you get an arrest you don't deserve, you can rectify that in court. And if for some reason your rights were violated, you'll get your payday. So thank you guys for watching. Check out a link to the best cop moments. It's in the end card. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and ring that little bell. Ding, 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 ding. And that will let you know when my videos get posted, and then you don't have to like go surf through my channel and be like, oh shit, I missed 3 weeks worth of videos, and then have to stare at me for 4 hours. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.